this course is Advice for Life, as you know, and this is going to be a phenomenal course. Phenomenal course. It's going to be very informative, a lot of insight. It's going to be pleasant. If you had our last course, you'll understand why I'm saying this one's going to be pleasant. It won't be overly challenging. It'll be challenging, but not overly challenging. And we're going to have many more media clips than we typically have in a course. For example, tonight we're going to have 8 videos, mostly short, but it's going to add to the spice where it's going. People are going to be sharing either experiences, conversations that they had, or you'll actually see the conversation taking place between the individual and the Lubavitcher Rebbe about the subject we're going to be learning tonight. The course, Advice for Life, where are we getting this advice from? This is the advice of, I'm going to refer to the Rebbe, to people. And the Rebbe gave an enormous amount of advice to an enormous amount of people during his lifetime. And he was very consistent in certain areas. You know, when you give advice to people, you have to advise the person. So you have to speak to the person, and every person is different. But there are certain overriding principles that apply all the time. And that's what we're going to be tapping into, which will give us advice. And of course, there are always clauses, right? There are always clauses. But we're talking about the general rule, and we can discuss those clauses as we go through the class. Again, if it's your first time here, we're going to be passing around the microphone to do the different readings that we have through the class. If you don't want to read, just pass the mic to the person next to you. It's not a problem whatsoever. And if you have any question, just raise your hand, and we'll entertain as many questions as we have time for. Okay. So, in life, perspective and outlook is key to how we engage with life. Two people will find themselves in the exact same situation, but they will respond to it very differently. Or they will internally experience what's going on outside very differently. One person, by way of example, can be calm, and another person can be completely stressed, even though the situation is exactly the same. Which is proof of the fact, by the way, that what goes on outside is not what creates what's going on inside, because different people have very different experiences inside. So what does create that inside experience? That's generally our perspective, our outlook. That's what changes how we experience what's going on outside. And so when we can create a shift in outlook, a shift in perspective, that can do enormous things for us. And I'm going to also invite you through the course, whenever we have a perspective that may be new for you, not to simply hear the perspective as a fascinating perspective, as an academically fascinating perspective, but to actually ask yourself, how would my life look if I actually adopted this perspective? And you'll probably find that your life may be challenged by adopting that perspective, and also your life may be liberated by adopting that perspective. And I think both of those you'll find whenever you're shifting a perspective. Sometimes the challenge will be greater, sometimes smaller, but the experience that you'll have, the liberation that you'll have, I think will be significant each time. So that's really what we're going to be, that's the offering that's being put before you as we start this course. So tonight's class is going to be the meaning at work. Okay, we're going to be speaking about work. Anyone here ever spent time working in your life? Right? We spend most of our life working. So whether you're retired or not, whether you have a formal work that you go to, or you do other types of work, whatever, volunteer work, whatever it may be, we're going to be talking about work and meaning at work. We're going to tap into a perspective of work. And I do believe that even though the perspective itself may not be new to you, I don't know if it will or won't, but adopting their perspective, I think all of us, beginning with myself, can do more of. So it's definitely a very big opportunity and can really change the way we experience every single day when we're going to work. And I'm going to start with a brief introduction about the Rebbe. Interestingly, there are many Hasidic masters, Rebbes in the world. There is all different types. They all have different names. They all come with, just like you have the Lubavitcher Rebbe, because the dynasty of the Lubavitcher Rebbe began in Lubavitch, or at least was played out in Lubavitch. Didn't actually start in Lubavitch, but they played out there. You also have the Bobover Rebbe, the Skverer Rebbe, the Gerer Rebbe. I could probably tell you 100 names right now, okay? Fascinatingly, just an observation, when someone says the Rebbe, everyone in the world knows which Rebbe they're talking about. And that is the Lubavitcher Rebbe. It's interesting. And that's because of the enormous influence that the Rebbe ended up having through his life and continuing to have posthumously. The Rebbe was born in 1902, passed away in 1994, took on the leadership of the Chabad movement in the year 1951, if you are mature enough to remember that year. He's universally recognized as the most impactful leader on world Jewry. In fact, today, I think we could say hands down, we can say hands down, that the largest Jewish movement in the world today is Chabad, which the Rebbe really built up. I'm not here to glorify Chabad or the Rebbe. I just want to give you a background on the individual who we're going to be leaning on a lot in this course to hear how he advised people. So that's why I just want you to have some background. In 1950, his father-in-law, who was the sixth Lubavitcher Rebbe, passed away. And actually his yard site was this past Shabbos, 2 days ago. And in 1951, 2 days ago, on the first yard site, the Rebbe stepped into his father-in-law's shoes and became the seventh Lubavitcher Rebbe. In 1950, 1951, the Chabad movement was very, very small. It used to be very, very big. The movement was in Russia. 1927, 1917, 1927, communism really destroyed the Chabad because most of the Hasidim, Chabad Hasidim were living in Russia. The previous Rebbe himself was almost killed by the communists, ended up being sent out of the country, and that's how he survived, the sixth Rebbe, the previous Rebbe. But in New York, where the previous Rebbe came during World War II, after being caught in Poland while Nazis were bombing it, so he finally made it to America. The synagogue that Chabad was using at that time held, 75 people. If you squeezed everyone into the room tightly, which Chabad has a tendency of doing, because it's, thank God, attracts so many people, maybe 100, 125 people, like really tightly standing in the room. That was the entire size of the room. Actually, about maybe a half to a third of the size of this room was, and you can see that today if you go to the Chabad headquarters, 770 Eastern Parkway, you can see the shul, which is still there. Not the big shul, but the little shul upstairs. And that was Chabad. And the Rebbe built up Chabad with a tremendous vision, tremendous inspiration, in being who he was. His scholarship is really, legendary. His wisdom, unbelievable, just sheer brilliance that the Rebbe had. And that's conveyed in the many, many hours he would just sit and talk at what we call Farbrengens for hours on end without a single note in front of him, quoting from the entire Talmud word for word, an entire Torah, Midrash, Kabbalah, mysticism, anything. So he was just, the Rebbe was very gifted in being brilliant. But brilliance really is not the key. But the key is that, I'm just going to say this is the most important thing, I think, to convey, is that the Rebbe was a man of God, an authentic man of God. And that's really what's very important to know. Let's watch this video.
It isn't only the Jewish community that values him, it's the worldwide community. And so many come here to receive his blessing.
Today, the Rebbe will be posthumously awarded the Congressional Gold Medal. A man who dedicated his life to helping others and to bringing people together. The Speaker of the House and I have many disagreements, but there's one thing, there is at least one thing on which we do agree. That is the awarding of this medal. This award, it brought Democrats and Republicans, liberals, conservatives, northerners and southerners, blacks, whites, and Hispanics. It brought us all together.
I remember the 70th birthday. People say that he was the new Baal Shem Tov. I rather compared him to the Maggid of Meserich. Although he never moved, he didn't travel. The Bear of Meserich was the one actually who had built. The Rebbe was like the Maggid. He had vision and wisdom and knowledge and everything else, but in practical life, he was an architect. He knew whom to send where. I think the Shaliach himself didn't know why he was sent somewhere, but he knew. The Rebbe was an architect in this part, in this respect. He knew how to build.
And therefore, I have asked for the blessings of the Rabbi, of our great teacher. Rabbi Schneerson is a great man in Israel. All of us respect him. All of us accept his judgment. He is a great lover of the house of Israel. He has shown his deep sentiment and love for our children. His blessings are very important to me. I do hope they will strengthen me on that very important mission I am going to fulfill during the meetings with President Carter, the President of the United States.
A unique personality, no doubt, that serves as a leader for tremendous number of Jewish people, a person that on one hand lives in the world of the Torah, but has got practical sense to the realities of the life everywhere in the world, and great sensitivity for the preserving of the Jewish people.
Okay, the idea of this video is just to give you a glimpse of the fact that the array of people that came to see the Rebbe was very, very broad. From, you see, two Israeli prime ministers, Elie Wiesel, secular professionals, non-Jews. So the purpose is just to realize that when people came to the Rebbe, they didn't come to him to honor him. They came to him because they really valued, in addition to the Rebbe's blessings, the deep advice and insight that he gave. In fact, sometimes the insight that he gave was challenging for people to actually live up to, which I think we may be challenged with as well, but that's part of how we develop in life. And we're going to see at the very end of the class why, in fact, what was unique about the Rebbe's advice to people. What was, in fact, unique about the Rebbe's advice to people? So let's go, we're going to begin by discussing holy work, is what we're going to call it. Let's go to the next slide. Okay. What is the Jewish, okay, stop right there, Menachem. What is the Jewish, go back one. This is going to be a lot of fun. What is the Jewish view on work, career, and wealth? That's what we want to master tonight. The Jewish view on work, career, and wealth. Okay, and we're going to actually start with the fun part, which is wealth. Okay? Because I hope you know that money is evil. No. That's what some people like to say. But let's begin with the exercise 1.1 on page 4. You see that, everyone? In your estimation, what is the Jewish religion's view on work and career? A, We're going to do, if we could do a raise of hands, I'm going to go through all three of them, and I'm going to ask you to raise your hands as I go through them again. It's a necessary evil that provides us the means of serving God, studying Torah, doing mitzvah, and being kind and charitable to others. You have to make a living because you have to survive, and once you survive, then you can do good things. That's perspective number one. Perspective number two, it's part and parcel of our spiritual mission and journey. That is our mission, to work. C, it is neither intrinsically positive nor negative, so long as we are honest in our business and do not allow our work career to consume our lives to the exclusion of our spiritual life. Other we can't discuss, so let's, because you'll have to make that one up. So let's just do, how many of you think that it's, the Jewish view is A, necessary evil? Okay, great. How many of you think it's part and parcel of our spiritual mission and journey? Okay, we got a few more hands for that one. It's neither intrinsically positive nor negative. Okay, I think I got the most hands. Very good, excellent. So now we're going to know where we're working out of. Fantastic. In your estimation, what is the Jewish religion's view on affluence, on wealth? A, it is encouraged to be wealthy. B, it is discouraged. Okay, how many of you, A, it's encouraged to be wealthy? How many of you, it's discouraged to be wealthy? A lot of you are not sure, apparently. But the wealthy, the ones for wealth are really, for it. The ones who, okay, good. Very good. So let's get that click. Okay, good. Historically, Jews were weary of material success. The Rebbe embraced the challenge of wealth, which is a big challenge, seeing it as a divine blessing. It is a challenge, but the Rebbe embraced it. Here's something very interesting. We all, I think we can understand, and you'll let me know if you disagree. Wealth can easily distract a person from spirituality. Right? Because wealth is, when we're talking about material wealth, financial wealth, and when someone has a lot of money, right, it makes it very easy for us to get caught up in materialism. Doesn't mean we will, but it makes it a lot easier for us to, and it can be very distracting. It could also, very easily, a person can become greedy when we have a lot of money. In fact, very often it's very hard to part with our money that we work hard for. It's very easy for us to become indulgent. It's very easy for us to develop an inflated sense of self. Look at me. I know what I'm doing. I made a lot of money. Right? Very easy. All of these things are not positive things. So clearly wealth presents challenges. It comes with a whole bag of challenges. In 1958, the Rebbe went to another Rebbe known as the Kapishnitzer Rebbe. I won't test you on that name. And who was sitting Shiva. And so he went for a Shiva call to this other great Hasidic master. And when he was there, they were discussing the inadequate funding that the yeshivas had in those days. Seems like nothing ever changed. The only thing that changed between then and now is that then they gave everyone scholarships and they didn't have money. Today, they don't give you the scholarships they used to give. And maybe they have to do that. That's how they can continue to keep the yeshivas open. But anyway, they were having a conversation about the fact that the yeshivas were lacking funding. So what should they do about that, right? And here is a transcript of the conversation. Okay? Text number, so we're actually going to jump, we're jumping. Okay. We're going to jump to, because of time, because actually if you look at text number 1a and 1b, which I'm going to run through, we have a verse from Deuteronomy. Yeshurun, referring to the Jewish people, grew fat and kicked, rebelled. You grew fat, thick, and rotund. Israel forsook the God who made them and spurned the rock of their salvation. When it says that we grew fat and kicked, what's it talking about? It's talking about us becoming wealthy. We became fat. We had everything we needed. What happened when we became fat? We rebelled against God. So it's a demonstration, a biblical demonstration that wealth is a challenge. The rich person's disdain, 1b, we have from Proverbs. A poor person speaks with supplications, a rich person replies with impudence. Again, we see that a rich person can easily develop chutzpah, right? They feel like all powerful, in control of everything. But here was the Rebbe's perspective, text number 2. Let's read text 2. Go ahead, Nathan. It should be on.
Jewish individuals need to secure financial security, and that is an important positive and an appropriate goal in and of itself, regardless of the additional imperative to fund Torah institutions in specific locations. Financial success enables Jews to live comfortably and expansively, and that will also enable them to broaden their perspectives, for our sages taught that a beautiful home expands one's mind. And they meant that in the most literal sense. If only all Jewish people would be wealthy. Wealth is a challenge. I fear the test that it poses. Rabbi, poverty is equally a challenge. It must be a challenge. The test of wealth is preferable over that of poverty. God will certainly help us successfully withstand the challenge.
Okay. How many of you are surprised by this? Raise your hand if you're a little surprised that the Rebbe is advocating for wealth. A few of you, not many of you. Okay, fantastic. In fact, after this meeting, after this conversation that we just read, when the Rebbe was finishing his conversation and ready to leave, he turned to the Kapishnas Rebbe. He did something that was a little bit spiritual, and he said that he told him, "I would like you to agree with me," because he disagreed, right? Because the classic position actually is that wealth presents very big challenges, and even though there are benefits to wealth, but maybe we'll be more devout Jews without it. And that was the Kapishnas Rebbe's position. And the Rebbe turned to him and said, "I want you to agree with me about wealth, that the Jews should be wealthy." Now that's a very interesting thing, because generally when you disagree with someone, you can't just go over to them and say, "I want you to agree with me." It's like, "I don't agree with you. What do you mean I want you to agree with me?" So why is the Rebbe telling him, "I want you to agree with me"? It was a spiritual thing, because the Rebbe wanted there to be a verbalization from a holy man stating that Jews should be wealthy, which is sort of like a prayer to God. And the Kapishnas Rebbe understood that, and he agreed with him. Another very interesting thing happened a few years earlier, 3 years earlier, in 1955. In 1955, on Purim, the Rebbe had a farbrengen where he spoke to the many Hasidim then, which was a lot smaller than it would become. 1955, it was still Chabad was just growing, and he said something really interesting in the middle of the farbrengen, which we're going to watch right now.
We'll start with Purim Tufshin Tesvav, 1955, when the Rebbe spoke about the test of wealth and then made an incredible offer.
Der Nisoyen von Aschiris ist ein sehr schwerer Nisoyen. Von deswegen, allweil alle Jiden gesagt geworden, sollen alle werden gewinnen. In Amerika ist Minig, jede Sache stellt nach Wut als Abstimmung. Die was eine Maske im Mund nehmen als Jürde, der Rebester soll sie geben, Aschiris ist der Floge. Und sie hat nicht der Haravani, was sie und der darf willkommen haben. Mit dem Jetzer Horror soll sie nicht Machschel sein, soll nur heben die rechte Hand, der Leber Schollen.
We were sitting by a farbrengen, and the Rebbe said that anyone who wants to become wealthy, raise your hands. Now, who has the audacity that I should ask the Rebbe about Gashmias? The Rebbe is for Ruchnistik, so most of the people wouldn't have the audacity to raise their hand.
Reb Shmuel Isaac Popek was said to have raised his hand, a fact that he would never confirm or deny, although he always told the story.
6 or 7 people raised their hands, and they all became millionaires. Subsequently, I asked the Rebbe for a broche. I had no parnosa at all, and the Rebbe told me I should go into real estate, which I did. And I told the Rebbe I had no money. The Rebbe says, you don't need money to go into real estate. So through certain maneuvering, we were able to buy 2 houses without any cash. That started us off in the real estate business, and thank God we make a living.
I just wanted to tell you that this gentleman of blessed memory is the grandfather of Mushka Weinstein, Uziel's wife, who some of you know, my daughter-in-law. And I was in his house because his grandson, Mushka's first cousin, was a classmate of mine. And we should all make a living like he made a living. Let me just tell you that. So what's interesting is that, the Rebbe said, whoever wants to take on the challenge of being wealthy, raise your hand. And you may have picked up in the comments that, I'm going to say I want to be wealthy. Everyone was suddenly humble. But the few people who had the chutzpah to raise their hand, and he was one of them, in fact, all became wealthy. But the point is that the Rebbe was conveying his belief that a Jew should take on the challenge of being wealthy. Why was the Rebbe an advocate of wealth? In order to understand why the Rebbe was an advocate of wealth, we have to first understand the Rebbe's perspective on work. And once we understand the Rebbe's perspective on work, we can understand why wealth is something that the Rebbe was a big advocate of. So we're going to zoom out for a few minutes and understand the Rebbe's perspective on work, which is going to help all of us very much. Let's go to the next slide, Menachem Mendel. So zoom out to we're going to zoom out now to the Rebbe's perspective, and just a moment. And that is something that some of you who have been to other classes have heard numerous times, and that is the ultimate purpose of a human being in this world, and a Jew in particular in this world, is the integration of God into the universe. In fact, if you were to ask me right now, what is the purpose of the Jewish people, which is a great question to ask, by the way, the answer to that is making this world aware of the presence of God. Now, if we climb a mountain in Tibet or somewhere, and we meditate for the rest of our life, we will not be fulfilling our mission. That's the job of a Buddhist, but it's not the job of a Jew. The job of a Jew is to be integrated in this world, involved in worldly affairs, in all different types of worldly affairs, have a mortgage to pay, have kids who talk back to you, have washing machines that break on you, right? And have a job where you have to interact with all different types of people, etc., etc. All of that is us being involved in the world, and doing so in a way that we are bringing the awareness of God to the world. That is actually the mission of the Jewish people. And we call that, in maybe fancier abstract language, we call that making this world a home for God, which basically means integrating God in the world. And that's why we find something very fascinating, that God designed the world that 6 days a week we do what? We work. And on the seventh day, we rest. Sheishes yamim tavod. The Torah tells us, 6 days a week you shall work. And uvashvi, and only on the seventh day, do you rest. Why would God set up a world that way? Nachman, let's click. Why would God set up again? Great. Why would God set up a world that way? Because God wants us integrated in the world. Society's view is work is a necessary evil motivated by need. I need money, right? That's why many people, this is gonna set the stage for the rest of the class. That's why many people, the moment, nowadays you have, I don't know how they do it, I wish I did, but somehow you have these 30-year-old millionaires, right? Boom, something in technology, and okay, they made it. Fantastic, right? And what do? They retire. 30 years old, they retire. Why? Because their entire purpose, they view work as something I have to do to make money. Once I have money, why would I go to work? It's like, why would in the world would a person go to work once they have their money? That is the society's view. The Rebbe's view, every part of life is purposeful. Work and financial success have inherent value and purpose. Work has inherent value. The work itself is valuable. It's not only a means to an end as we normally see it, or as people normally see it. Let's read text number 3. It's on page 8.
The Torah's perspective on Jewish life is puzzling. It informs us that God chose us from the rest of humanity and spiritually elevated us from regular people. That creates the impression that we must spend the majority of our time in sacred pursuits, studying Torah, performing mitzvot, and worshiping in the tabernacle, and later in the Jerusalem temple. Why then does the Torah itself establish that the majority of a Jewish individual's life is to be devoted to material pursuits, in which there is no distinction between a Jew and anyone else. The explanation is that the purpose for which God created the world is that God desired that we actively turn this material world, with all its corporeality and material coarseness, into a dwelling for God himself, through serving God in this world in accordance with the Torah that he gave us. To achieve that, the majority and main thrust of our daily service of God is not strictly spiritual activities. After all, our spiritual activities are comparable to the divine service performed by souls before they enter the world and after they return to heaven. Rather, we spend most of our time specifically on interaction with materiality. Therefore, the Torah emphasizes, for 6 years you shall sow your field, etc. The idea is to bring sanctity and divinity down into our fields, the coarse realm of materiality, so as to turn our material and corporeal world into a home for God.
Okay, so in this talk, the Rebbe is using the sabbatical year system in Israel as an example. But in the very same way, we use a week as well. Just like we have 6 years that we work the fields, and the 7th year we don't work the field the whole year. So likewise, 6 days we work. If God wanted us to sit in the synagogue and study Torah all day, God would have designed the world exactly that way. One of the beautiful things about what the Rebbe often does is he cuts through all of the confusion and just shows you the simplicity of things. It's simple. You want to know what God's objective is? Look at how he set up the world. Very simple. 6 days work, 7th day rest. It's really that simple. It's like the war between Israel and Gaza is not complicated. Actually, we complicate it. It's very simple. There's evil, and evil needs to be destroyed, or they will propagate more evil. Very simple. Okay, we have some challenges in exactly how to go about that. But there's a simplicity that everyone confuses, and that confusion actually is what takes us away from doing what we're supposed to do. So in this very same way, there's a certain simplicity over here which we need to see. So what we have is the spiritual purpose of a career. This is going to be one of 3 points. Bringing holiness and Torah values into the workplace. What just happened there? Let's go back. Bringing holiness and Torah values into the workplace is the ultimate purpose of creation. What is the ultimate purpose of creation? For us to go into our work every day, do business with Torah values, with Jewish values, with proper ethics, interact with people as a gentleman or a fine woman would interact with people, etc., etc., showing the way a godly person conducts themselves. That is bringing God into the world. That people should see that this is a person who represents God, and this is how they act. Someone needs help with something, they help them, etc., etc. So that makes our work very valuable. Before the paycheck shows up, we're already doing something enormous, which is the entire purpose that we're here in this world. Let's go to a second benefit of. You got it? Okay, second benefit, and that's making a difference. Making a difference when we go to work. The workplace provides a unique opportunity to have a positive influence on others. When we are confined, when we limit ourselves, were we to only be with our community in a synagogue all day or in a study hall all day, right? We wouldn't be interacting with many, many other people that we interact with because we go to work. Going to work opens up doors for us to making a big difference and meeting many people that we otherwise would not meet. So that itself is tremendous. And really, were we to maintain perspective, right, which we can, every time we meet someone, I'll tell you this, maybe I shouldn't tell it to you, because then you're going to call me, but whenever I get a call from someone, right, that's God sending someone to me. That's what it is, right? It's God saying, I want you to interact with this person. Proof, I'm interacting with them. Right? It was ordained. So there must be something meaningful that's supposed to come out of this. How do we make something meaningful come out of this? The moment we ask ourselves that question, our interaction with that person has an entirely different perspective. And it's no longer what can I get out of the meeting with this, which is the way we would normally think in business, because business is about me doing business, right? Making money. But now, I may not make any money, but I can have some type of a positive influence on this person. And that has more value than the making of the money. That's my direct purpose in this world. So that's how this perspective really shifts everything. Let's read text number 4 on page 10.
My grandfather, Rabbi Shmuel of Lubavitch, the fourth Chabad Rebbe, had a close follower named Elie Abeler, who in terms of scholarship and aptitude was a simple fellow. In one of Elie's private audiences with my grandfather, he was told, "Elie, I envy you. You travel to various fairs where you meet many people. In the middle of a business transaction, you get into a spirited discussion over a Torah insight, something inspirational you recall from the public Ein Yaakov class that retells the stories and ethical teachings from the Talmud. When you do that, you arouse the other person's interest in studying Torah. This activity causes much joy on high. God rewards such trade with the blessings of children, health, and sustenance. The larger the fair, the more work there is, and the greater is the livelihood earned."
Excellent. We're going to watch a video with two stories, two people share about guidance that they got from the Rebbe, and that leads to them meeting people and being able to have influence in the workplace.
I just started a new job in IBM, and Hey Tavis comes along, and the Rebbe says on that day that everybody should be like a shliach. I didn't know, what did the Rebbe mean, everybody should be a shliach? Maybe he means that I gotta quit my job and like stop becoming a campus shliach or something like that. I wrote into the Rebbe, should I give up my job for IBM? What is it that the Rebbe wants? And the Rebbe like underlines it on the answer, and with a big, just one word answer, Lama. Why do you have to give up your job in IBM? I want you to stay in those things and be my shliach.
Madische mitzad de Geber kinonu, als wo kommt und was für einmal mit dem Masse kommt, soll dorten Schmäh von dem Mäbischten, soll dorten machen, dass in der Leben also seinlich Schake, bis wir Schachanti beseichern, ordentlich, in seine eigene Dalle Dame ist und danach gleich, al besser mit Bachut.
And that was what I ended up doing. I stayed in IBM. I had a very, very matzliachtik career.
So if you would give a warm round of applause for Mr. Moshe Rappaport from IBM.
But I felt all the time that I was doing shlichus. In other words, I would make speeches all over the world.
Your desktop or on your wall, or you're going to be wearing and so on, that are AI driven. But the real...
All through my career, I would write to the Rebbe what was going on, what I was doing.
Going to be secure. How are we going to manage the access control?
Top people, CEOs, politicians, famous journalists from all over the world came to find out what IBM was doing in research. And I get to meet all these people with my yarmulke, with my beard, and so on and so forth. The Jewish people came over to me, and I was actually a shliach in that sense.
Where often Central and Hong Kong should be competition.
You certainly know that now Hong Kong is a visiting place for many Jews from several countries. And then you can influence that during their visit in Hong Kong, when they are returning to their homes, they will bring with them additional Yerushalayim. And that will be your business also. Yeah.
אני במקצועי נהיב לארכיטקט, יש לי מפעל בארץ גדול, ובזכות ברכתו מלפני שנתיים במכתב שכבודו כתב לי, שקיבלתי ממנו, קיבלנו עבודה גדולה מאוד, $2 מיליון, בצבא ארצות הברית, חודש אחרי המכתב. חודש אחרי קבלת המכתב קיבלנו את העבודה הכי גדולה בחיינו מהצבא האמריקאי.
ואם זו התחלה גדולה,
לבד יש בכך יכול לעשות כפליים.
אני מקווה, אני משתדל. והרבה עובדים שלי שלא היו יראי שמיים, כשזה קרה, חזרו בתשובה. וזה הודות לכבוד הרב.
עדיין עליך להוסיף עוד יותר בגלל שמיים שלו, כאילו שבבחור יילו ויעשו קרליך על כל פנים החצי ממנו.
The major exhibition that we exhibited at was in Brussels. It was a major upholstery fabric international exhibition. Part of our display was knowing that if a Jew came in there, he knew he would get caught and me asking him if he could put on film. The exhibition is going to be Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Rosh Hashanah was coming up Monday night. To come in for one half a day on Monday exhibition, it's a little bit crazy. On the other hand, I knew the Rebbe wanted we should always be at the exhibition, so we're going. Rabbi Chadakov let me know that the Rebbe suggested that we put up a sign at the beginning of the show that due to the Sabbath, we're going to be closed at Friday 2:30. So the customers, they'll know in the beginning of the show they should come into you right away. At about 1:30, suddenly I see a gentleman walking up and down past our stand where there's thousands of people walking. But I see he keeps looking at the sign and he's asking, tell me, what is this closing the Sabbath? It's an international exhibition. What's this closing Rosh Hashanah? I said, where are you from, sir? He says, Ich bin a Polische. So I started dealing with a Jew. I said, how about putting on film? He looks at me like I went crazy. He says, film? Who believes in all of this? I don't believe in God. I don't believe in anything. He says, Ich bin durchgegangen Hitler. I went through Hitler. I never put on film, he says. I said, my friend, I understand you 100%. Once in your lifetime, you didn't have a bar mitzvah, you said. You'll be able to say, you're right, God wasn't right to you, and you had a bar mitzvah. He took off his jacket, and we put him on film. The minute he said Shema Yisrael, he broke down and started crying. He says, Ich kenn nicht. He was holding us out, Ich kenn nicht. And he sat down, and he didn't know what to do, how to thank us. You can imagine how we felt. Business, we didn't do that much, but we knew what we came for, and we knew we were going to have a good year.
That second story there, in particular, really demonstrates, right? His business is in Israel. So he flew from Israel to Brussels. He knew he's only going to be able to be at this fair for a half a day. So why did he go? He went simply because he might meet one Jew. And that's what happened. And he had a transformative influence on this Jew, because when a Jew puts on tefillin once in their life, it's a game changer for their soul. And that's looking, so this man is looking at his business entirely differently. When he goes to work every day, he looks at it very differently. It's not just about making money, it's about who can I have an influence over. So it's a whole different perspective, and it makes our day-to-day work so much more meaningful. So what we have is, number 2, the workplace affords us unique opportunities to inspire others to be better people and better Jews. We can inspire other people. We can be a force of influence in this world. That's very powerful. And the last point that we're going to make in this regard is what your job really is. Typically, people go to work because we believe our job is to make money. Actually, our job is to give money. I'm not going to be doing an appeal tonight, but so you don't have to worry. We just finished a successful raffle, but it's really bringing out this point. If you ask someone why do you work? I work to make a living. Why do you need to make a living? To provide for my family. That's true. There's a lot of truth to that. We must make a living to provide for our family. However, there's much more to it. Much, much more to it. It's far beyond my family. It's about how I can actually help others with what I'm making. And once we have this perspective, we understand why being wealthy is important. Why being wealthy is important. Because the more money we have, the more we can give. The less money we have, the less we can give. It's that simple. Our job is to give. Let's begin with text number 5.
Who is like the people of Israel, one nation on earth? The implication is that even while they engage in mundane matters on earth, they do not separate themselves from the true one. It is therefore appropriate that we do not perform all of our mundane engagements for material ends, but rather in order to bring sustenance to other souls, pieces of godliness, and supply them with that which they lack, out of gratuitous kindness toward them. In doing so, we resemble our Creator, the one God, for God performs free kindnesses at all times. And his kindness is true, not for recompense, in that he animates the universe and all its contents every single moment.
Excellent. You know, and so the very opening of this reading, it quotes a verse which says, who is like your people Israel? And I'm going to read in the Hebrew, it says, Goy echad, one nation, ba'aretz, on earth. By the way, in case you wonder why the Jews are singled out, because we are singled out, because we are one nation on earth. We are a singular, unique nation on earth. But there's a deeper significance to Goy echad, one nation, and that is that our job in this world, this nation's job is echad, is one. What does that mean, one? It means that we don't see our lives as polarized. There's my religious life, and there is my physical life, even though many people tend to live that way. But actually, our job is to see everything as one. Our spiritual and material are all one. Our material serves our spiritual, and our spiritual we integrate into the material. That is our mission. So we are supposed to create oneness out of this polarization that we sometimes feel or sense. And that's all part of going to work and making money, so that with that money we can actually give, we can serve others. You know what God does all day? He gives. Did you just breathe again? That was another breath God gave you. God just gives and gives and gives and gives. We emulate our Creator when we give. And that's why you know there's an odd thing. Every day we pray in the morning, we say the Shema. You ever notice what do we do when we say the Shema? We cover our eyes. Why do we cover our eyes? We say that God is one. It's very hard to see God when we're seeing the physical world around us, so we cover our eyes. Right after that, what do? We run into a material world. How do you run into a material world after losing yourself in the reality of God? Because we're not running away from that reality, we're bringing that reality into the life that we live. That's the whole idea, to integrate the two. There was a Chabad chassid by the name of Rabbi Yecheskel Springer, as we would call him. And he owned a turkey farm in Israel. And in 1959, he had an opportunity to expand his turkey farm. So he thought to himself, if I expand my business, it's going to consume me and all my time. I'm not going to have any time to do anything. Right? Should I expand my business or not? What did the Rebbe tell him? Text number 6.
You question whether it is appropriate for you to desire to further expand your income. That question has already been answered. 10% of one's earning must be given to charity, and ideally for those who wish to step beyond the basic requirement and enhance their observance, 20%. In fact, Rabbi Shneir Zalman of Liadi explains that it's appropriate to give even more than that. This is especially relevant now that the institutions that require our charitable support require expansion, and therefore their financial needs are constantly growing as well. Consequently, additional charity is required, and that demands greater income.
So the Rebbe advocated for him to actually expand his business, even though that would take away less personal time for him to be serving God through prayer or through Torah study. but because with wealth, a person that can accomplish enormous things. We're going to watch a video now. Anyone, you ever eat tafudi ice cream? Anyone know what tafudi ice cream is? Raise your hand if you know what tafudi ice cream is. Okay. It's the first ice cream that was made out of tofu or out of soy. Is that right? Tofu? Soy? Yeah. Right? Yeah, Power of Ice Cream. He's the first guy. His name is Mr. David Mintz. Actually, his nephew, you can look in any of your JLI books, is the founder of the Jewish Learning Institute. His nephew. Yeah, but this is a video. This is Mr. Mintz, Mr. David Mintz speaking to the Rebbe about whether he should expand his business or not.
Ja,
also von euch Seite, sie drücken wir. Wir haben einen Zoom, also so verkaufen.
was verkaufen die Retail Stores, die ganzen
Geschäft?
Geschäft?
Ganze Geschäft, ja. Weil es ist erst, der Umstand ist ja nicht so geht. Die Sache ist so, sie sagen, die Company, die Menschen mit euch Seite sagen, es kann wachsen, ob andere Menschen kommen rein mit der Sache, ihr Geld.
Was da eine gute Sache, was darf ich auch jeden anderen?
Nicht, aber so wusste Rebbe ist also...
Nein, mit welchen Menschen ist ihr kommt auf aktiv verkaufen. Aber eben mit dem Geld, was sie bekommen, wird sie das investieren in ein Geschäft. Aber mit welchen sein weiter aktiv mit dem Ewigsten, dass der wo dem Zdocke, wo dem Massage-Zdocke, und wie ist das hier gegeben, also wo dem die Menschen schwierig sind.
So, der Rebbe hat also verhalten eine Arbeit nach dem...
Ja, aber die Sessenteil muss als Mamsche sein. Sie will Papier verkaufen. Macht nicht das, aber mit der Maya, sie soll tegen die das, was sie bleiben bei, soll sie das verstärken und verbreiten.
Now, this is really fascinating. I just want to point out because you have a man who's a wealthy businessman who's asking a straight-up business question. There's nothing spiritual about this question. It was a straight-up business question to the Rebbe, which is a really strange thing to do. I mean, you know, from the outside, right? We're going to, at the end of the class, I'm going to sort of capture why so many people did this. But the Rebbe was answering him from the perspective that we're discussing right now. Don't sell the business. Even if you sell a part of it, make sure to reinvest that money in the business to expand it and to grow it. Why? Why would you want to give the opportunity of giving tzedakah to someone else? Right? Did he make that comment? Yeah. You should continue doing that. God gave you the opportunity to be the one to give to others, right? A significant purpose of work. Continue doing that. Very powerful. So what we have in total here is, the third point is, the greater our earnings, the more we can give towards charitable causes. So when a person says, it's too much work, I don't want to have the headache, I don't need the money, I'm not going to make the effort, big mistake. Make the effort, bother yourself, make more money, do amazing things with that money. Okay, let's go to the next segment. How are we doing, everyone? No objections yet? Yes, go ahead. Great. So this is a very fundamental question that you're asking. And the Rebbe was very clear that we have communal responsibility, that a Jew should never see themselves as an individual, but as a part of a greater whole. So if God puts someone in a business position and gives them, we know that God gives us when we suddenly get someone knocks on our door, when we have opportunities. Someone gives us an opportunity to do something, that God is telling us, I want you to do this because this is how you're going to be able to serve the broader Jewish people. So there are certain people who are, dedicated to study, but if someone is in the world of business and they have further opportunity to grow it, that is a sign that they have a duty to the Jewish people, and that's why they should grow the business. And that's exactly what we're conveying over here. Yeah. Yeah. Now I will say that you may not hear this advice from. You may hear different advice from other people. May God bless them. This is the Rebbe's advice, and I find deep inspiration from this because one of this conversation we're having is a very fundamental conversation that draws a distinction between the advice that the Rebbe gave people and the perspective others sometimes convey and have. And that is this point of communal responsibility, my responsibility to the Jewish people. It's a very powerful thing. Okay. Let's go to page 15, exercise 1.2. What do you consider the optimal age of retirement? 36? 42? I think you missed it. Yeah. What's the optimal age of retirement? Anyone? Let's do a raise of hands. 41 to 50. How many of you are in favor of 41 to 50? We should all retire. 51 to 60. If you're able to, of course. 51 to 60. Okay. 61 to 70. Okay, some more hands. Post 70. Okay, very good. Other. Other. Yeah. Okay. Great, Candy. Very good. The average retirement age in America is, for men, 65. For women, 62 is the average age of retirement, actually. I know that just upsets some of you because you're saying, hey, I think I missed something here. But anyway, many people, maybe we can say that, the vast majority of people, I don't know, I never took a poll, but many people look forward to retirement. That would be very normal. In fact, I would say that many people, their entire career trajectory is formed around retirement. It's all figured out as to when I'm going to make enough money that I have in the bank that I can live comfortably and enjoy the rest of my life, and Palm Beach is waiting for me. Now, it makes a lot of sense that once someone is financially secure, they should retire. I'm financially secure, everything is good, and I have more time to study Torah. But I think we already laid the groundwork here, right? I think it's become very clear, right? So based on what we learned, it's very clear that if God put me in a certain position in life, that position is an opportunity. The work itself is meaningful. I don't work simply to make money so that I can take care of myself. The work itself is a mission, which means that I embrace this, and I'm not looking forward to get out of it. I would say that a large part of the reason why we look to get rid of work, which I can relate to very, very well, and that's with quote-unquote holy work. But the reason why is because we don't have this perspective about work. When we do have this perspective about work, we actually will not be looking to get away from work. And of course, I do want to say work can shift, of course. And I worked in a certain field and I could take that gift and use it in different ways, right? But I'm being productive with my work and continuing to be productive and not just looking as to what I can do to make myself a more devout person, but how can I be serving the Jewish people, being that that's the way God set me up in life. Let's watch this video.
Ich will gerade so beten für gesund und mal frei von dir. Ja, ich soll mich sagen, wenn die gesund haben, gesunde Kinder und haben gesunde Psyche, so dann mal schon ein bisschen. Ja, aber deswegen die Zeit. Mir nie war und sagen.
Jews, was do you think? How? you can be active now also. The retirement is only good for old people, or young and young persons. But 220, how much money you need? 220, you have 45 years. It doesn't matter. To be good, the first thing for you Geschäften, that you can certainly continue it, not have to think even about retiring. You must gain much more money to give much more tzedakah, and to do so in good mood and good health together with your family.
And things are moving along well, and I'm not going to retire.
Yeah, thank you. Forget about it.
Yeah, that was Rabbi Shem Tov, Senior. Yeah. Yep. So you got the Rebbe's perspective on retirement, I think, pretty clear over there. If one fulfills their life's purpose through their career, retirement would be absolving oneself from that purpose. That's what retiring is doing. So, I loved the first clip of this series right here, where this the man says, he already had this conversation with the Rebbe, because the Rebbe refers to, I already told you, right? That and he asked him, where am I going to get my strength from? And he asked him, well, where did you get your strength from until now? From God, right? What, you want to get your strength from somewhere else? The reason why I love that clip is the simplicity of the Rebbe's communication. The Rebbe in intelligence was a genius beyond measure, but he didn't lose simplicity. Sometimes when people get too carried away, they lose the simplicity of what's on the ground, and that's really the beauty over here. Actually, in 1972, the Rebbe celebrated his 70th birthday. And at his 70th birthday, he spoke at a Farbrengen. That's 1970 already. Chabad was already quite was beginning to swell. And there were thousands of people there. And he said that I got advice from many of my friends that I should start slowing down. I'm 70 years old. So he spoke all about retirement then. That's when he made, it's the most well-known talk about retirement. And he said that in honor of my 70th birthday, I'm going to make a pledge this year to establish 71 new Chabad institutions. That's a major undertaking. And by the way, Chabad then, today, Chabad, there are 5,000 institutions worldwide, right? At that time, 1970, Chabad, I don't know if we had... 100 institutions even, right? Chabad was quite small on the global scale, relatively speaking. And in 1 year, 71 new institutions. That's how the Rebbe sees retirement. We can't turn ourselves away from our God-given purpose. That's a focus also. Like, what does God want from me? What is expected from my life? It changes the way we see everything. That question. Okay, so now we're going to talk about something really exciting. I should have advertised this. I thought about it today. This would have gotten another 100 people to the course. Spiritual secrets to material success. Wouldn't that have gotten another 100 people to the course? Spiritual secrets. So we're going to discuss now different things that the Rebbe emphasized to people to be successful materially, to be successful in business. What are some spiritual tips to being successful in business? The first thing that's very important to always remember is that we work in the efforts department. This is the way I coin it. We work in the efforts department. God works in the results department. The very awareness of that, as deeply as possible, brings more success. To remember that the success I'm having in my business is not my genius. I'm just facilitating, creating a mechanism through which income can flow. But the success is not mine. Because, and this should be apparent, although we get very lost in our success very quickly, because there are people who do the exact same thing we do, and we're not much more intelligent or any more intelligent than they are, and they're failing and we're doing very well. And there's no real rhyme or reason other than that blessing, that the blessing of a business is through the blessing of God. And that's why the greatest spiritual secret to material success is doing business with faith. And faith means having faith in God, that God is going to provide. I'm going to do what I have to do. I even work on this all the time. Trying to let go of the concern or the need to make sure that we're bringing in enough money to this and the other thing, right? And to remember, let go, just do what you have to do, and do the spiritual side of what you have to do, and all the other stuff, just make sure the form is there. And the success of it, just let it roll. Let it roll. You don't have to worry about it. Right? And the more we do that, the better we get at it, reminding ourselves that God's handling that. Right? God doesn't need help. He just needs us to create the form. Just create the form. And this is one of the very common areas that the Rebbe stressed as a conduit to blessing, to simply trusting in God. Let's read text. And by the way, I just want to say that I teach a women's class every Monday morning on Zoom on a book called The Gate of Trust. Yes, a whole bunch of our students are here. Great seeing you for the second time today. I'm happy you're not getting sick of my voice. And you can actually go onto YouTube and watch all those videos. We're up to, today was our 13th class. And that will help enormously in ingraining trust in God and developing a relationship with God. And being able to worry less, let God do what God's got to do, and you just make sure you're doing what you have to do. That's all you have to do. You don't have to worry. Your worry doesn't hold up anything and doesn't bring anything in. It accomplishes absolutely nothing. It just makes you feel like you're doing something and making your life miserable. That's all it does, right? So let's read text number 7.
In God we trust. I received your letter in which you write about your anxiety in regard to the question of parnus, livelihood. You surely know how often our sages have impressed on us the importance of trust and confidence in God, in order that we realize that all difficulties encountered in life are only trials and the tests of a passing nature. To be sure, the question of parnusa is one of the most difficult tests. Nevertheless, God does not subject one to a greater test than he can withstand, as our rabbis expressed it. According to the camel, so it is its load.
In other words, God only gives a camel the load that it can carry. If God asks us, and it's going to be important for the next point we're going to make as well, if God asks us to do something, then we know we can carry the load. I'm sorry for interrupting.
The very trust in God is a vessel and channel to receive God's blessings, apart from the fact that such confidence is good for one's health and disposition, and therefore is also a natural means to the desired end.
Excellent. So trust is really fundamental in actually facilitating the blessing of abundance. When we trust, the business does better. Point number 2, which is somewhat obvious, but not so necessarily. Clothes for Shabbos. Sacrificing a work day for the sake of Torah mitzvahs brings great success. Here's an important thing. If someone's in retail especially, closing on Shabbos is very, very difficult. It's actually threatening to the business. No question about it. It's an immense sacrifice. We have a non-dualistic worldview. A non-dualistic worldview is a point that I made earlier. The spiritual and the material are not two different realities. They work in harmony together. In fact, the more they work in harmony, the more healthy we function. The more we think that they're separate, the more divided and fragmented our life is. It actually hurts our life when we don't realize that the spiritual and the material actually work in harmony. If God, the creator of the physical and spiritual, tells us to do something, it's because it works perfectly with every level of the universe, the material and the spiritual. So if God's telling us to close on Shabbos, it's not like I'm making a sacrifice that is going to hurt me. It is, and by the way, I want you to know that one of the great blessings of the Rebbe's leadership was his conveying of this in very simple terms over and over and over. If God asks us to do something, it must be for our good. God doesn't ask us to do things which hurt us. Yes, sometimes there may be a short-term challenge or this or that, but ultimately, this is good and for our good. So if God says that you should close on Shabbos, then being open on Shabbos cannot make your business better than it can be. It can only make your business worse than it can be. I know it's hard to imagine that, right? This requires trust. But this is something that the Rebbe absolutely conveyed without a question. Let's read text number 8.
Common sense thinking. It is clear to the unbiased mind and even to plain common sense that the Almighty, who is the giver of the Torah and mitzvot, is also the creator and master of the world, whose benevolent providence extends to everyone individually. It is also equally obvious that no lasting good can come from breaking God's laws, especially such a fundamental law as Shabbat observance. For the important thing is not how much money a person earns, but that he should be able to spend it in good health on happy things, which is entirely in the hands of God. In view of the above, it is quite clear that your attitude of the businessman in question should be even if there were no other immediate business proposition, for it is necessary without delay to give up the kind of business that interferes with Shabbat observance, with the full confidence that he who feeds and sustains 3 billion people and all living things will also be able to take care of the individual and his family, and provide him with a source of parnasa, livelihood, which should not be in conflict with the will of God.
And one of the things that you'll probably see throughout this course is the Rebbe's clarity that it is clear that doing something that's not aligned with the will of the Creator can't possibly be of ultimate benefit to a person. So, and he's sort of subtly alluding to the fact that it could be that, it will benefit a person in one way, but it can also create great setbacks in many other ways. And being in harmony is the only productive way for a Jew to operate. Let's watch this video. A few great clips here.
I started a store, clothing store in downtown Los Angeles, 3,000 square feet store. I really seriously was saying myself, like, I want to close the store on Shabbos. I don't want to work on Shabbos. But it was difficult to think like this because most of the business you're doing on Shabbos. There was some Shabbos I used to sell $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 on Shabbos. During the week, barely I can sell $100, $150. Now the contract, the lease I have, I was obligated, 20 years lease. The owner, he warning me in the beginning, if you ever was thinking to leave this lease, I'm going to run after you to the rest of your life. I'm not going to let you go out from it. So I wrote to the Rebbe, told them, Rebbe, I decide to close my store on Shabbos. I would like to have a blessing. I should not get hurt. I'm getting a letter, and in the envelope I open, I see $18, and then it say, 1. מתחיל מקודם שקיעת החמה וגדול הזכות. 2. להפיץ את התורה מתוך שמחה. 3. לתת צדקה שמה, to give tzedakah at the money what he gave me. The next day I say I'm going to go to the landlord and I'm going to give him the lease, and the landlord was not there. I came back to my store. There is a guy walking to my store. He wants to buy the store, he's telling me. So I told him, go to the landlord. He's telling me, I was with the landlord. I say, what the landlord told you? He say, you holding the lease, אתה מחזיק את החוזה. He took a checkbook and he wrote me a nice check. Just can tell you, with this check I bought a house and I started manufacturing. And I remember going to the Rebbe, and on Sunday I told the Rebbe, I got a miracle with the store. The Rebbe was laughing and he went like this on my mouth, like, don't talk about this.
הרב, אנחנו השקענו שלושתנו בביזנס של לסגור בשבת. אנחנו צריכים ברכה והצלחה.
בשביל השבת ויום טוב.
ויום טוב.
ושבת
ויום טוב סגור.
Теперь очень нужно соблюдать субботу. Так как это Бог указал, to hacer садибис, когда он дал Торы, он начал с того, что каждый еврей до конца времен должен соблюдать субботу.
I started my practice on Nulatz Avenue, and things looked very bleak. It wasn't going anywhere. I remember having a friend. I happened to have mentioned to him that I was having some problems. This young man suggested that the Rebbe would be able to help me, and I made an appointment with the Rebbe. I started to tell him I wasn't doing well here in Brooklyn, and I was able to find a place in Bayside. I was going to be starting an office there. He says, do you work on Shabbos? And I said, yes, I do. And he says, now you're going to a new place. He says, you're moving. Perhaps you ought to think about not working on Shabbos. It became known that Dr. Walensky doesn't work on Saturday. And it was unheard of. Dr. Walensky goes to a shul. I was very successful financially, very successful. Even in the way I lived my life, I felt more satisfied, more at ease, very satisfied with being Jewish.
So got a few stories over there. Did you ever watch a story like this first guy? You know, he closed his business, which is really like a crazy, wild thing to do, that you're making $10,000 only on the weekends, you're making nothing during the week, and you just close your store for Shabbos, right? And then this guy walks in the next week and, you know, pays him a crazy amount of money just to be able to get the lease, right? You ever wonder, like, that story never happens to me? Like, it's an amazing story, but, you know, it's like, I mean, it's not going to happen to me. I mean, it happens to some guys have crazy stories that happen to them, right? Why did it happen to him? Because he did something crazy. So when we step up, we begin to see a whole different scale of things going on in our life, which is just amazing. Let's go to the next spiritual secret, and that is time off for Torah. Not only is it a mitzvah to study Torah, but actually everyone has an obligation to study Torah every single day. And that's why when the Rebbe spoke to supporters of Chabad, he made a point of telling them that you must dedicate time every single day to study Torah, and in doing so, that is actually going to enhance your business. We're going to jump to
my business has been very bad, and I hope to God you can give me a brachas of my
you put a tzedakah push in your business, and
Yes.
to arrange to have at least 10% given for the net income of the business to tzedakah, to charity.
Thank you, Rabbi.
God Almighty bless you. Have good news. That will put in the tzedakah push in the business.
Thank you, Rabbi.
You're welcome.
אני דור 11 בישראל. אני פיתחתי נושא חדש שמאוד חשוב לי לשלמות המשפחה ולהצלחה של המשפחה. אני מבקש את ברכתך. ההמצאה היא המצאה מאוד חשובה ויחידה בעולם.
באיזה שטח?
בשטח האלקטרוניקה. אחסון של מידע מחשבים דרך הטלפון. זו ההמצאה היחידה בעולם.
ויהי בהצלחה רבה ובשורות טובות. צריך להבטיח להשם שתיתן צדקה, בצדקה 10% מהרווח הנקי. זה ברכה והצלחה. הצלחה רבה. $1 מייסטר. Sein Bedienst, das die meiste...
So gehen bediuk auf dem Sand?
Nein, die Parkett, die wird mäßig sein, so sein nicht Bedienst, auf Kolpane mit $1 mehr.
So mehr wie meistens.
Das ist schön.
My mistake, this is actually the next point. So let me just go back for a second. It's critical for a person to spend a few minutes every single day studying Torah. And that actually is that will actually bring greater success to one's business. So that's a very important thing to do. We're going to skip over that reading. But the next point is also, with something the Rebbe advocated very, very strongly, is that every business should have a tzedakah box, a charity box in your business. So you should have, if you have a desk, whatever your business is, have a charity box in your business and use it. Just put it, the amount doesn't make a difference. But it's already conveying the purpose of your work is that you're there to make money so that you can give 10%. You know that the one mitzvah that God says to test me, right? When does God say test me, right? I wouldn't want to test God, right? But just regarding one mitzvah, God says, test me, please test me, actually, is the language of the verse. And see what's going to happen if I'm going to give you, right? God says give 10%. And you're going to make the 90% of that 10%. That's what God says. And the Rebbe was a major advocate of making God a partner in your business. Making God, and that means that I say that I'm going to give a certain percentage of my income from the business to God, right? And God's a partner in my business now. You know why God's got to make my business successful? Because his business isn't going to do well if I don't do well. Simple. But I don't mean that in the cute sense, but I mean in the serious sense. Yes? Yes? The only thing I'm going to say about which charity is I'm going to say a Jewish charity. Which charity, it should be a charity of your choice. Different people have inclinations towards different things. It should be I'm going to say, it's a little bit vague, a Jewish charity. If someone has a real dilemma about which charity to give your money to, I'll be happy to help you make that decision. No, I don't mean that here. I mean that seriously. Like if you have two charities, not Lubavitcher Bucks County, you have two charities, and you think, which one should I give it to? I'll be happy to help you discuss which one is more meaningful. But different people have desires to give money to different types of causes. That means that your neshama is designed to give to certain things, but they should be proper Jewish causes. I'm not saying that we should never give to a hospital or to whatever it is, but our primary charity should be to Jewish causes. So I'm just going to say that. What's that? Oh yeah, and the reason why the Rebbe would give $1 is because he said whenever two Jews meet, something good should come out of it. So he would give you $1. The intention of giving the $1 was that you give that $1 to charity. Of course, many people held on to that dollar and gave a different $1 to charity. But the point was to give $1 to charity. I have so a bunch of the Rebbe's dollars that he gave me. Just a moment, everyone. Where is this? Just a moment. Right. Let's read text number 10. Who has a microphone?
A divine partner. I hope that from now on you will realize more fully and confidently that God is your partner in the business by virtue of the tzedakah charity stake in it. And of course, the larger the share of the tzedakah, the larger is the share of the partnership. So you can go boldly ahead on a broader front. I hope to hear good news from you.
Excellent. And here's an amazing thing I have to tell you. The Rebbe's point is that when you give, God increases the success of your business. The conduit to the blessing of your business is by giving. Okay? which, by the way, is proof of the fact that one of the primary purposes of business is to give, because the giving itself is what merits greater business. The Rebbe had such an absolute conviction about this, that when people came to the Rebbe, and this always was like very inspiring to me, not only as an idea, but also in my own life, that when people came to the Rebbe and said, I'm not making enough money to support my family, you know what the Rebbe told them to do? To give charity. So now someone comes to you and tells you, I don't have enough money to support my family, and the Rebbe says, give money. That's unbelievable. You know why? Why would he say such a thing to someone? Because that's the conduit to success. Be a giver, God invests in you. Be a giver, God invests in you. You want God to invest more, give more. And that's the reason why the Rebbe would frequently ask people if they have a pushka tzedakah box in their workplace. Okay, so let's wrap up the tonight's lesson, okay? Why, in fact, would so many people seek out the Rebbe's guidance, being that the Rebbe was a spiritual man? Why would people seek out the Rebbe's guidance in regards to, life matters? Life matters. So let's watch this final video.
Rivka Blau is the daughter of Rabbi Mordechai Pinchas Teitz, a prominent rabbinic activist and chief rabbi of Elizabeth, New Jersey. In 1961, she was vice president of Yavne, one of the first Orthodox student organizations on American college campuses.
Our mission statement was that we wanted to promote Jewish learning and Jewish observance on campus, and that we wanted to, I don't remember the exact wording, but that we wanted to enable people who want to know more about their Jewishness to find out, but we knew we had to know more if we were going to be that kind of a presence on campus. It was essentially Jewish learning, Jewish observance, and not to feel so alone. And that if people wanted to learn more, we would be available to help them. Those were pretty much that was the essence of the mission statement. And at that time, we already had, I think, between 13 and 15 college groups involved. And we also had isolated students in different places. At Rutgers, we had 3 or 4 students. At the University of Pennsylvania, we had some students. Now, at that time, the Lubavitch Rebbe had a representative who would come to Columbia and who got friendly with the president of Yavne, Joel Levine. And this young man, his last name was Feller, told Joel and me, well, actually, he told Joel first, and then Joel told me, that he wanted to meet with 2 officers of Yavne and to talk to us about how we had gotten started and what we were doing. Our appointment was for 10 o'clock at night, so we came to 770 Eastern Parkway at 10 o'clock at night, and we were asked to come in to see the Rebbe at 12 o'clock. And he asked us many detailed questions about how we had started, how we had found each other, what we were finding on campus, what were the problems, what were the possibilities, what opportunity was there for people who were interested in finding more about their Jewishness, how could we reach them, what do we find worked well, what we found did not work. Very, very to the point questions. At the end he said, well, I've asked you a lot of questions, would you like to ask me some questions? And I had no questions to ask of the Rebbe. I thought that this was a wonderful meeting that we had just now had, and I said, no, thank you. And the fellow who was with me said, well, yes, I've spent a Shabbos or 2 here in Crown Heights, courtesy of this young man that I know from Lubavitch. And I hear all kinds of wonder stories about you. I hear that you know better than the doctor whether there should be surgery or not. You know better than the lawyer which way to proceed with a case. Do you know more medicine than the doctors? Do you know more law than the lawyers? I mean, what kind of thing is this? So the Rebbe smiled, and he said, you know, when a house gets built, the architect draws up a blueprint. He gives the blueprint to the contractor, and then the contractor tells the plumber how to do the plumbing, the mason how to do the masonry, the electrician how to do the electricity, the electrical work. He said it's not that the contractor can do it better than everybody, but he can read the blueprint, and that's why he can give the instructions. So he said, Hashem istakel ba'oraso vara alma, The blueprint of the world is the Torah. So somebody can understand Torah, he can tell other people what they have to do within their own métier.
This is a very precious conversation that she just shared. Menachem will go to the next, which really captures exactly why people would go to the Rebbe and ask the Rebbe for advice. An intelligent mentor will never tell you, close your store if you want to be successful on Shabbos. An intelligent mentor will not tell you, when you don't have money, what should I do to support my family to give tzedakah? But someone who knows the blueprint of the world knows exactly what to tell you about material matters. And we're going to get a whole lot more of this in the next 5 weeks. Thank you very much, everyone.